Hi everybody. Answering a question today that was on one of my recent videos. The question was, why are you teaching if you're still figuring it out? And I love this question in so many ways, and I could probably ramble on about it for an hour or so or have a conversation. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tune into the divine and see if we can get a more streamlined answer for the question. That might be more appropriate. So, why am I teaching if I'm still figuring it out? Let's go inward with that question. The figuring it out is the genius of life. What is genius about knowing it all? What is genius about having all of the knowing? What is genius about living in a world that we completely understand? What is fun about living in a world that we completely understand? There are so many situations in life. Billions of people, each with their own set of individual situations, circumstances, feelings, perspectives, past lives. There is no one that could have it all figured out, because the figuring out is life. The figuring out is what creates life. The figuring out is what leads us into the next step. And the next step, and the next step, and the next step. If it was all figured out, wouldn't we be gone from this life, from this body, from this experience? If we had it all figured out? Isn't the figuring out the process of becoming, of enlivening, of awakening? So figuring it out is our life. That's what life is. It's figuring it out. Even if we're teaching about awakening, teaching about Kundalini, teaching about how to live life, what to do next, how to be. We're figuring out how to teach. We're figuring out how this person will awaken, or how that person will awaken, or how we can respond to this request or that request. We're figuring out how to answer this question right now. We're figuring out the joys of one person. We're figuring out the joys of living in general. How can you have it all figured out? When someone sits on a stage and says, I have all the answers, this is how it goes, listen to me, I know the truth, what happens next? Where does that person go from there? Who is experiencing that? Who is experiencing the I know everything, I figured it all out? Who is having that experience? Is God having that experience? Is the divine knowing everything? Or is the divine God, essence, truth, divinity, love, just in the beingness of whatever is happening in the moment? Isn't that the truth? Isn't the highest truth the not knowing, the opening, the requesting? I've yet to see someone who has it all figured out. And when they say that they have it all figured out, there's usually a pretty big downfall that follows. If we look at a lot of the modern day teachers, there's usually a big downfall that follows. And I bet they didn't have that figured out. I bet they didn't have it figured out how to come out of that downfall, how to awaken within that downfall. They're still figuring it out. We're all still figuring it out. Life is figuring it out. God is figuring it out. We're all in this together, in this big, beautiful, divine play of life, figuring it out, loving it, being it, enjoying it, asking questions, receiving answers. That is the love. That is the joy. That is the experience. And that is my personal experience. I'm sure the other people on this planet would answer that in a very different way because we're all figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. My truth, my divinity, the love within me teaches through me. I don't know the answers that are going to come forth when someone asks me a question. I don't know the energy or the grace that's going to arise when I work with someone in a private session or in a group session. I could never have someone else's problems figured out. All I know is that I can surrender myself to the divine as much as possible, as much as I can, and watch the energy that unfolds. And that's the beauty of the grace to me, that I can just watch it unfold in the way that it unfolds. And I watch people's lives changing for the better, which is grace. That's pure grace. So that's how I teach without having it all figured out. I surrender. Surrendering is divine. So thank you for that question, because I love that question. And I think that answer is part of the figuring it out. Okay, Jai Ma.